And then the 100th anniversary for one of our clubs, and just
I saw that. Yeah,
oh
Greenlee.
my, and I was mentioning before that if I see a great idea, I have no problem stealing it or borrowing or, asking to do that. So I'm just grateful that we have Chris Martz with us tonight. He presented at the Pennsylvania district a couple weeks ago now, the same session, Preventing Membership Burnout. And, I think at times in our lives, we all struggle with that. And I was among them until Saturday. And I will say it was just such a boost in the arm to be attending the Key Club District Convention in the morning and then driving up to Greeley to celebrate 100 years of incredible, meaningful impact. It was just such a shot in the arm. So really, I'm just going to sit back because I don't feel burned out today. It's 48 hours later and I'm still riding on a high. So I am just going to right away welcome everyone and then turn it over to Chris Martz, who is our Director of Global Membership and Education. So welcome, Chris. The Rocky Mountain District is excited to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. So this is only the second time I have given this presentation. So Sarah Zuleta from Pennsylvania wanted to do something different. And she was like, hey, if I give you a topic, will you come up with a presentation? I was like, sure. And she gave me the topic, and you'll find out in a minute why this was a difficult topic for me to address. However, we're going to talk about membership burnout tonight. So this may be very, this might be some heartache for you, but you probably have some people in your own club who are experiencing some burnout. So we're going to use the chat feature tonight. I'm actually going to look at the chat when I ask you some questions. And then Robin and Josephine are going to monitor the chat for any questions while I'm just presenting. But let's go ahead and we're going to start with our first series of chat questions. So I want you to think about these three questions, and you can just answer one of them or two of them, whatever you are thinking. But why are you attending tonight's presentation? And what are you hoping to get out of tonight's presentation? And then think about, when it comes to Kiwanis, what causes burnout for you? So if you could just take a couple minutes, choose one of those that you have a gut reaction to, and just throw something in the chat so we can all see what people are thinking.
Hello?
I see the 80-20 rule. We will mention that. Oh, I see a new member who's also the club secretary already. Definitely, energizing, re-engaging members, maintaining membership. The same 10 people doing everything. These are all great things. Just keep them coming. I hope you're reading the chat because there are a lot of great things here. I think that's a great one that just popped in. So much responsibility outside the club that you feel guilty for not participating more. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Spread the wealth. Danny, have you heard me speak before? Because that is my phrase, spread the wealth.
I have not heard you speak before.
It's a great phrase, and you're gonna see it on a slide in a little while. Okay, so keep those ideas flowing. I'm going to go ahead and continue. So you all saw tonight's description, I would assume. So I just want to highlight a couple things just to get you thinking. I need you to think about how many hats you actually wear in your club, and then how many hats that you would like to shed from your head. And, think about, are you the pancake chair or, another chair, and you've been doing that for 9 or 10 years, and pancakes or that service project just isn't your thing anymore. It's just not what you're passionate about. So you would just like to give it up. Or, are you ready to quit the club if you're elected club secretary one more year? So those are some things to think about. So we're going to talk about some ideas to overcome some of that burnout, to help some of your other members, and most importantly, recognize when that is happening, and especially within yourself. So complete transparency, this is me. I burn out so much. However, I will say that I have my volunteer life under control. It's the other things that get in the way: home, social life, work-life balance, exercise, diet, all those great things. We live extremely busy lives, but I am the king of burnout. So I just want to, in complete transparency, tell you that because I have a PhD in it. So I am, an expert to talk about this subject. And quite honestly, when I was putting together this presentation, it really made me think about not only things in my Kiwanis Club, but also things in my own life, social life, well-being. And so I feel like I've made some adjustments in other areas of my life. So this doesn't have to be just for your Kiwanis life. So I want to give you two personal experiences. About 15 years ago, I went to volunteer for the Indiana K-9 Assistance Network. It's a great organization here in Indiana that raises assistance dogs. And when I got to the volunteer orientation meeting, the director of ICANN, that's the initials, the acronym, said to me, "Chris, we were so excited to see your name on the list." Because at that time, I was the director of communications for a national fraternity. And she said, "Our communications are not up to par. And we are so excited that you want to volunteer with us. And we would love for you to work on our communications." I looked at her and said, "That is not why I'm here. I want to raise a puppy." Because that is why I was volunteering for the Indiana K-9 Assistance Network. I wanted to raise a puppy for a fellow recipient of an assistance dog. So really knowing why people are volunteering is so key. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then my Kiwanis Club does one of the largest Easter egg hunts in the Indianapolis area. And after 8 or 9 years, I literally lied to my Kiwanis Club and told them I was going to be out of town for Easter because I had chaired this thing for 9 years. And it was getting to me and no one else would step up. And so I thought, if I fake a trip, someone has to step up because we're not going to let this Easter egg hunt go away. Guess what? The Easter egg hunt, went off. Great. I was a mentor to the person who stepped up, and they did some different things that year. They made some improvements, and so it was all for the betterment. And then we, ended up with co-chairs and really a better experience in the end. So we're gonna have a little therapy time here, and I have several questions for you, and these are just kind of rhetorical, but you can throw things in to the chat if you'd like to share. But I want you to think about, what is your passion when it comes to Kiwanis? If you're doing something that you are truly passionate about, that you truly love, you are less likely to get bored, overwhelmed, and burned out in your club. It's when that passion goes away for that project that the burnout starts to begin. The second question, what is one professional skill that your club members insist that you include in your volunteer life? And just like I used the example from the Indiana Canine Assistance Network, some people need a break from their professional lives. You know, we have CPAs and bankers who join our Kiwanis Club, but don't expect that they are going to want to be the treasurer of their club. Maybe you could utilize their talents on the audit and finance committee once a year, but find maybe someone else who wants to be the treasurer. I did hear about one club, and this was pre-pandemic, that they had recruited several military members into their club, which is awesome. But during one of their events, they put them in charge of security. And that is not what those soldiers and reserve officers wanted to do. They wanted to work with the kids. And so again, we go back to knowing what the volunteers really want to do. Think about what is something that you have wanted to do for Kiwanis, but you can't because it's someone else's job. This is really good for your club to know, because at some point, that person is probably not going to be able to do the job. You are a great person to be an understudy and an apprentice to that person. So when something happens, or even an illness sets in, a conflict, in scheduling, you're a great person who has that expertise, who can step up and help that person out. And then what is one thing that you would like to eliminate from your Kiwanis volunteer life? And I think that this is a really good question. I think that this is a great question for club leadership to ask their members, especially those who are very, very engaged. In my previous role, before I came to Kiwanis, I managed a pool of member services administrative assistants. And every year during their appraisal, I asked them, what's the worst part of your job? And I didn't ask that question so we were going to get rid of that piece of their job. I asked that question so we could figure out how to make it better, how to make it easier, more manageable, and we could really work together as a team to really figure that out and to make their work life better. So I think that that is great. So hopefully you've been sitting there thinking about how many hats in Kiwanis you wear. So in the chat, all you need to do is type a number. How many hats are you currently wearing in Kiwanis? Get those numbers rolling in the chat. Over 6, with several 4s. 10. Can't count. Love it. So as you're thinking about those numbers and you're typing them in, I want you to think about this. What if you only wore one hat? What if you only wore one hat in Kiwanis? Bottom line, we focus on what is most important. It gives us a lot of opportunity to focus on that one hat that we're doing. So in this exercise, think about what is your most important hat. So if you need help deciding, you might ask yourself these 3 questions. What's the most important hat that you wear to you? What's the most important hat that you wear to others? And then what's the most important hat that you wear to the kids we serve? Now, if that same hat resonates on all three of those questions, that's probably your most important hat. But more than likely, some of you have some conflicts. And so you have your most important hat, the kids have their most important hat. And of course, others think that you cannot shed a hat because you know everything about the Easter egg hunt or the pancake breakfast. So those are things to think about. So this was brought up in an earlier conversation in the chat, but when we are faced with too many competing priorities, sometimes there's just no good way to successfully accomplish everything. We probably can get things done, but if you're a perfectionist like me, that's what causes some of my burnout, is because I take on way too many things and I want to do everything perfectly. And so that is really what causes my burnout. So we know that research has shown that multiple hats are both inefficient for the club, but also it's highly stressful for the individual. So what I love is when I go into facilitate lieutenant governor training, I always ask the lieutenant governors elect, so what other offices are you holding next year in your club? And it never fails that we always have a club secretary, or worse, a club president for next year that is also going to be a lieutenant governor. And so I always tell them that, lieutenant governor is your most important role this year. And there could be a conflict of interest as well of being president or club secretary. So I'll never forget, in the Capital District one time, I was doing this presentation to lieutenant governors. We took a break. We came back and I said, anyone have any questions that you thought of during the break? And this one lady raised her hand and she was like, Chris, I am no longer the club secretary. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I called and resigned. I just told them that Chris Martz said that I could not do both jobs. And she's like, they're going to have to find someone. So I thought, hey, it kind of worked. But think about that. And we don't want, a lot of uproars in Kiwanis clubs. But again, we need to find people who can do these jobs. So what causes burnout? We know what causes burnout. You know what causes burnout. Anything that is monotonous, stagnant, those things that you just repeatedly do, obviously can cause burnout. When you receive little or no recognition, even if it's something just little, the club president who followed me in my club gave awards every meeting. They were so meaningless, but meaningful. They would be candy bars. We had this thing that we did called paper plate awards, and she literally just would write on a paper plate a recognition item and put a sticker on it. It was something so simple, but it really meant something when you were publicly recognized for something that you do. We talk a lot about work-life balance in our professional lives, but for Kiwanians, we have to add a third in there: our work, life, and volunteer balance. And that's really when a passion becomes an obligation. And that passion doesn't necessarily have to be Kiwanis that becomes an obligation. 20 years ago, I ran my own graphic design company. It was just something I did as a hobby. And then I kept taking on more and more clients and working a full-time job and doing volunteer work. And all of a sudden I realized this is not fun anymore. This is work. And I just shut the company down. So, those are things to think about, but don't let it get to the point where you're shutting Kiwanis down. Also, when a task seems impossible to do, or there are huge consequences for failure, obviously that can be a cause for burnout. When you're working with a committee and there's what I call toxic people. They're just negative people who you're working with. They may just sit back and say, well, that can't be done. That won't work. We've never done it before that way. They're just always negative. They're not being innovative and creative. Or maybe you're just feeling isolated. Maybe you're on a project, but you're really a committee of one. You're not even a committee. That obviously can cause burnout. Maybe you're in the wrong role. And I'm not saying that you can't do it, but maybe you're just not comfortable with the skills that you have. You're using unfamiliar skills, or you just are in the wrong environment. Maybe you just don't have the resources. Like maybe you have an interest in video editing, but the club wants you to edit videos every week of your club speakers, but you really don't have the video editing equipment. You're just kind of just doing it on the fly and just learning as you go. That can cause burnout. You just don't have the right resources. So now we have this big thing called the pandemic, and it has added to burnout. So if you remember, about March 13th, 2020, when we were told, we're just going to go home a couple weeks, we're going to flatten the curve. As of today, that has been 745 days. Now, some of the world has opened up, but a lot of the world has not opened up yet. There are different degrees of still this pandemic-related burnout. Zoom fatigue. Zoom fatigue is the biggest one. And I'll just give you some real quick statistics why people are so burnt out from Zoom. During the first year of the pandemic, our overall screen time spiked to 13 hours a day for the average American. Now that was all screen time. That was Zoom, that was using your tablet, watching TV, just on your computer in general. Our online consumption of news, entertainment doubled during the first year of the pandemic. When we start a Zoom meeting right now, today, when we start a Zoom meeting, the average person has 20 tabs open. They are multitasking. Several of you are not paying attention to me right now. Yeah, you're listening, but I am not in the forefront. That's okay, because we're used to that. We are used to multitasking, but that's really playing a lot of tricks on your mind right now. We are multitasking so much during a Kiwanis Club meeting, during any meetings that we are part of. So we also, you all know the rule, 20% of the club members are doing 80% of the heavy lifting. That has been challenged even more during the pandemic. And that is causing more burnout as well. Not to mention that our club leaders, our club presidents are learning to navigate Zoom. Now they're learning how to navigate a hybrid meeting. They have to find new meeting spaces. My club's meeting space closed during the pandemic. We have so many clubs that are in that situation. They're trying to recruit new members in new situations, via Zoom meetings and social media platforms, switching up service projects, pivoting fundraisers. We have added a lot of extra weight on to our club officers, and all of that is causing burnout. Not to mention, we've got all the CDC guidelines, the state and local guidelines. And when you start looking at service projects and fundraisers, and you're thinking ahead 2 months, and you're like, what's life going to be like? Are we going to have a mask requirement? Vaccinations required? Are things going to change? We went back to work at Kiwanis International, and we quickly went back home. Things changed very fast, and we now know how to pivot like that. But it causes a lot of stress on our club leadership and working with venues. and working with vendors as well. So you're thinking about those type of things. Not to mention our personal lives have changed, and sometimes very drastic. Maybe it's your own health challenges, family crisis. Maybe a parent or a child has moved in, adult child has moved in to a home, after, during the pandemic. Many people have been called on to be, parents to their parents now. They're homeschooling. We're just doing so much. So obviously the pandemic has really affected burnout for our club members. So let's switch gears and talk a little bit about how to avoid and manage burnout. I think the number one thing, and Robin and I were talking about this before the presentation, and she said it very well when she introduced tonight's topic, connecting to the purpose. I think that is so key. Robin was with Key Clubbers, such exciting young people. The Greeley Kiwanis Club celebrating 100 years. So exciting. All of that rejuvenates a person. It really re-energizes. It makes you think about why you are a member. I love going to Kiwanis events. I love seeing people from, all over the world or, all over the district. I think that is very important, but connecting to the purpose, remembering the kids who we serve. Also, creating an achievable position description. Look at what you're expecting people to do. Or maybe there's not even a written position description for what they should be doing as a committee chair. Get those things down on paper. Make simple sign-up sheets, breaking everything down to something that's very manageable. Giving volunteers holidays. It is okay when you are looking at planning next year to say, are you really sure that you want to be the chair of committee X, Y, and Z? Asking those questions is very, very important. So setting guidelines at the start. Think about, do you do evaluations of service projects, fundraisers after they happen in the previous year? Do you just do them because, or do you really look at them and make some changes? Sometimes those are very simple changes that can make a big difference in a fundraiser or a service project, or even meetings. So think about those things and really make changes based off of evaluations. And then if you're not doing evaluations, start brainstorming. How do you make that pancake breakfast more inviting? How do you make it more Kiwanis related? Do you also do a service project with it? Just all kinds of things that you just want to brainstorm. We've not done anything different for the Easter egg hunt in the last 10 years. What should we do different? Kids have changed. Do they want an egg hunt? One of the best years was it rained. The ground was so saturated. We have 11 acres that we do an Easter egg hunt on. It was so saturated that there was no way we were going to let the kids out in the yard. So we pivoted. This was pre-pandemic. People didn't even know what pivoting was. We had a parking lot party. We brought in music. We handed out bags of eggs rather than them hunting eggs. We just put 15 eggs in a bag, and we were just passing them out. The kids had so much fun. We had the whole parking lot basically covered in chalk, sidewalk chalk. Chick-fil-A is one of our sponsors, so the cow was there along with the Easter bunny. They may have gotten in a few arguments, a little roughhousing, fun stuff. But just think about, how do you make things fun? Create an environment that is welcoming, especially with committee work. making sure that the committee is empowered to make those changes that they see fit, or at least bring things to the club to talk about. And that's where the innovative and creative mindsets come into play. I know I've talked a lot about the Easter egg hunt, but it's really passionate to me. The one thing that the pandemic has done for us is we have realized that over the last 10 years, more and more egg hunts have popped up. So we have to get more creative. We're not going to do traditional Easter egg hunts anymore. We may, try that parking lot party again on a sunny day. It doesn't have to be raining to have a parking lot party. Kids had a lot of fun. Maybe kids don't want to run out on 11 acres and find eggs anymore. We need to do something fun, and we need to leave that up to the committee to own that. And then obviously thank volunteers. That goes a long, long way. So let's talk about some solutions for multiple roles that you have. So first of all, acknowledge the people who are wearing multiple hats. Thank them publicly. Acknowledge that you appreciate all of their contributions. And let it be known to your club that you really want to rotate or reshuffle hats. If that's something that you really want to do, embrace it, but also get the club engaged. Don't let this be a leadership decision. Let this be an entire club decision to kind of reshuffle hats. Make it known that asking for help is definitely an option. That is what the club leadership is there for. So your committee chairs need to come to you. They need to ask, but also that the flexibility goes both ways. So the leadership really needs to be checking in on those committee members, making sure that not only are they on task, but where are the issues that are arising, and really making them feel that they're making a difference with their service project, and you want to help them live out their dreams. And we talked a little bit just a couple minutes ago about respecting each hat. That is so key. Some people are not going to want to give up their hats, and you have to respect that. So here's a second option. There's that phrase, share the wealth. There is plenty to do in the Kiwanis world, and we can share it. So talk to your members about that. How does everyone play a role in all the projects that you do? Tell people, acknowledge that, when they join Kiwanis, they really should be part of a committee. They should take on some type of leadership role. It does not have to be a club officer role. It could be, something, a very simple chairman role, or serve on a committee. But just explaining that leadership is an obligation in your Kiwanis club. So create some type of agreement too. And that might be, I'm going to be the chair for 2 years, and then we'll find someone else, and I'm going to be a mentor for that person. And then I would like to take on a new role. Maybe I already know what that new role is going to be. But think about those type of things. So basically, we're going to talk about this with officers as well. Term limits. Maybe you say you're going to be a chair for 2 years or 3 years, and then give yourself an opportunity to turn that over, but also to mentor someone new. And don't let anything become what I call Joe's project or Jane's project. When I first started Kiwanis, we had literally Andy's project. Andy's project was great. It was going to one of the missions in Indianapolis and feeding them once a month. But it was out of the way. There were so many issues with how it was being done, and it wasn't at a good time frame for our members. And Andy was the only one who was really doing it, and maybe 1 or 2 members would support it. And it really took one of the ACE tools of evaluating everything that we do in a membership satisfaction survey to realize that our members didn't want to do that. And we really had to thank Andy for, wanting to spearhead this whole project. Andy wasn't upset. Turns out Andy's church wanted to take on that project. So it was a win-win for everyone. But just don't allow a project to become one individual's pet project. And then here's when all else fails. This is just an idea I had, but I think it's something worth exploring. You know how you draw names out of a hat for holiday gifts? What if your club drew committee chairs out of a hat? Might work. Might be very interesting to see what people draw. It might also spark some creativity, spark some innovation into what you're doing in your clubs. So think about that. Ask your club if they might be willing to do that. And then let's talk a little bit about some solutions for officer positions. There is nothing that says that you cannot create assistant positions. We generally think that only the club secretary should have an assistant position. But the club treasurer can have an assistant position. There are clubs, especially in the New York district, where clubs are a little bit larger. They will have executive assistants for their presidents, who basically just take care of administrative work, but they kind of work together as well. So think about those type of things. Creating term limits. I think that is extremely important. If you get into that situation where I'm elected president again for the third year, that is an issue. Always have a successor in place. You can create a succession plan for both officers, but also for committee chairs, service project planners, fundraising event organizers. Bottom line, don't become a club of past presidents. Now, I also know someone said this in the chat, but I am going to warn against this. When you get a new member, please do not make them the secretary or especially the president-elect their second year. Okay, give them the opportunity to be on the board as a director or an assistant position, and just let them get their feet wet a little bit about Kiwanis. Let them learn and then elevate them into the leadership chain. I think sometimes we are so excited about new members that we're like, we have the perfect position for you. You are so dynamic, you're going to be president next year. Probably the wrong thing to do, but it happens. I know it happens because I was part of a former member survey about 8 years ago now. 42% of our former members said that they were either put in or they were either elected as an officer role their second or third year in the club. Let me say 42%, yes, were elected their second or third year. I think it was 63% or something like that were asked to be an officer and then declined that. So,
Chris.
Yes.
Chris, it's Tom Powers.
Yes, Tom.
Could you elaborate a little bit more about don't become a club of past presidents? Are you talking about rotating people that have been past presidents into the role?
Yes, so that is really a membership issue. So when you look around your club and you can say, Robin's been a club president, Chris has been a club president, Mike has been a club president, Tom's been a club president. When you can go around the table and you can say that, you probably have a membership problem. And I think that that's a great opportunity for you to start looking at new members. And
Yeah, I guess on one hand, if you're rotating your officer positions enough, you're going to have a lot of past presidents. So I don't know if that necessarily defines the issue. Don't become a club of past presidents. On one
I
hand,
think,
you want a lot of them.
if you are a club of past presidents and you're excited when elections come around and you're like, oh, I might get to be president again, that's a different story than those clubs that, oh yeah, I will take this on again for the third time. I think that is more the issue. But yes, I mean, if you are rotating your officers, I can see it working. But I also see that if everyone has been in a leadership position, that it probably is just time to get some new members who are excited about the mission and what your club does. And then in the next, 2 years, 3 years, you start, having a succession plan of your newer members going up the chain of leadership. But great comment there. And then solutions on events. Ask members what they want to do. I'm going to go back to the sign-up sheets for the Easter egg hunt. Our first pass of the sign-up sheets for the Easter egg hunts, I always said, you may not sign up for anything you did last year on the first pass. We let everyone pass it, sign up for something new. The second pass of the sign-up sheet, if that was still vacant, you could sign up for that thing that you did, last year. It was giving everyone equal opportunity there. Avoid what people have done their past years. Avoid maybe their professional skill set unless that's really what they are passionate about doing. If you did recruit that CPA member and they want to be your club treasurer and they don't mind if this is their 10th year as being your club treasurer, then that's fine. But also respect that person who says, I would rather not do club communications because I do communications every day during my work life. Also ask members what their lightest professional months are. I think that this is a very important question. I have several friends who are CPAs. I would not ask them to do one thing right now. They are so tied up with everything that they do, accounting and CPA wise. Ask people when their lightest months and maybe match them up with an event or a project based on that, or at least suggest to them that they might consider those type of things. Again, just a potential solution that is going to avoid burnout in the future. Again, think about the people who you're engaging. Are they in the proper roles? Do they have an opportunity to make the event even better? Can they showcase their talents? And then could you excite them to take on even a larger role the following year? And this is great for new members. There was one year that my club recruited 4 24, 25-year-olds. Their energy was so dynamic for our club. It just seemed like every project we did something new. They just had a great idea for it. And it was just something that really excited the club, that we were not doing the same old things. And we let them try brand new things. So what can you do now? I need you to think about the people in your club who are probably experiencing burnout. And then most importantly, ask yourself if that person is you. And ask yourselves why they might be experiencing some burnout. Are they not coming to meetings anymore? Are they hesitant about signing up to do anything? What are you not doing because you are experiencing burnout? What is the consequence for their burnout? Ultimately, are they going to leave your club? Or are they just going to stop doing service? Are they going to stop coming to meetings? Think about those consequences and thinking ahead, how can you curtail those consequences from taking place? So I do want to leave you with an idea, and we're coming up to annual meeting time for our clubs. Election reports are due to Kiwanis International June 1st. And that is a great opportunity to fill everything, just not your officer positions, but also fill your committee positions and look for the potential burnout points. So if your Easter egg hunt chair is also the chair of your spring cleanup at the park, that could be an opportunity for burnout if those events happen in the same month. Easter is a spring event, spring cleanup. So, think about that. And, just look for those opportunities when you could reposition someone. Make sure that they are, okay with that. Maybe that is their lightest professional month and they will say to you, hey, I can do this because come December, I'm not going to be available to do anything. So at least have those conversations with them, I think is very, very important. So now we come to your turn. Questions that you may have, comments that you have. I know Robin and Joe have been watching the chat, but I also have no problem with you just unmuting yourself as well.
This is Margie from the Greeley Kiwanis Club, who just celebrated their 100 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was fun. So once these people, you kind of relieve them of their longstanding or their burned out duties kind of thing, how do you keep them engaged to keep coming and not just totally checking out?
Yeah, I would not relieve them of everything. Figure out where their talents can be used best and see if they want to take on a new hat. Take them out for coffee, explain to them why your club needs them in a new role. Maybe there is someone who could step up into their current position, but you probably have an idea for them. Their skill set could be used in a different way. Maybe you want some creativity added into a new project and they are the person to do it. We never want to completely relieve people of everything that they're doing because, again, we share the wealth, there's plenty to do. Any other questions? Thoughts?
Okay, I have one. I'm Chrissy Reason. I'm with
Hi,
the
Chrissy.
Rocky Mountain E Club, but I also I live in Ohio, and so I have a club out here in Ohio as well. That's an in-person club, and I'm just wondering how to. It's not exactly that my members in that club are burnt out. I just feel like they're in almost like a holding pattern and not doing anything. It's just really stagnant. I joined the club I moved to Ohio in June, and I joined the club first week of July. So I got in as quick as I could, but I'm really struggling with, I don't know, getting some momentum or anything. It just feels like it's kind of a stagnant pattern. There's only like 12 people in the club. Most of them are about to retire, like right at that age. So I'm having I just want some guidance on how to inject a little bit of, I don't know, something into that club to help us be more productive?
Yeah, so well, first of all, if they're about ready to retire, that is exciting because so my first Kiwanis Club was the perfect mix of people. We had our retirees and we had our young professionals. And the great thing about that is that an all-day project was well staffed the entire time because our retirees could work during the day, our young professionals could work in the late afternoon, evening. So I bring that up because I think that is a great opportunity for membership, just to think about that. But
Okay.
also having an exciting brainstorming session where you might have, depending on where you meet, or you want to find someplace special to meet where you can do this, put flip chart paper all over the walls, every project that you do, and have a brainstorming session. And maybe your first question is, if money were no object, how would you change this project? And just see what ideas float up out. What have you always wanted to see in this project? And that's just an opportunity where people can just throw ideas out, and there may be a great idea out there that someone has been, just reluctant, to talk about. And there may be a reason why you can't do that, but more than likely, you're probably going to improve some of the projects that you have. So I would also suggest we have 9 ACE tools achieving club excellence. And if you go to Kiwanis.org/ACE tools, one of them is a membership satisfaction survey. And I think that is so key to do every other year at least, and just find out why, if you have 12 members and only 6 of them are showing up, what would make the other 6 show up? What's missing for them? And find out those type of things. I will say though, if you're going to do a membership satisfaction survey, be prepared to change. That is so key. You just don't want to walk through the exercise. You really, really need to change based on the feedback that you are getting from the members.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Chris, it's Governor Robin. Can we unshare your screen? And then we've got a really great question in the chat from Gail that I'm going to read.
Okay.
She says, I have a hard time digesting that our club works for kids, and yet we have such a hard time getting our young parents involved. Any ideas?
I felt the same way about, again, why do I keep talking about the Easter egg hunt? We promoted Kiwanis so much because we thought that there was a great opportunity there to recruit parents. What we quickly learned that was not our market, basically because of social economic status, language barriers of the children that we served. What we realized was that we could get the teachers to join our clubs. And that was almost a game changer for us because our service projects started changing. They added so much value to our membership. We were serving a Thanksgiving meal to elementary students that a lot of it was thrown away because they did not want mashed potatoes. That was not in their plan. We served rice the next year after we started really listening to people. And I think that is just key, making sure that you know who your market is. So the people who the people who are beneficiaries of your service projects may not be the people you recruit from. However, I think it's so important to have someone at the table. So if, and this is a good example of my club, the Burmese population, that is one of our populations that we serve. At one point, we had someone who knew all about people from Burma and the Burmese culture, everything that they were doing. And we did some great service projects because of that. So I hope that makes sense, but think about people you can have at the table who know the kids who you are serving and their families.
Chris, another thing that I think really ties in well that came up at our last spring training session about membership, was the fact that we really do kind of need to reassess when we're meeting and why we're meeting. And, for a lot of these young parents, mornings are difficult. They're trying to get kids off to school. A lot of them are working. So if it's a lunch meeting, that might not be conducive to them taking time out of their busy schedule during the day. So, for us to be really thinking out of the box and having multiple opportunities and ways that they can engage with us as a member might be something that we really need to look at and not be stuck in a rut as well. So that's another thought. There was another question in the chat, and I want to make sure that we get to all of these. So Denny, do you want to take it or do you want me to read it?
It doesn't matter. It's pretty self-explanatory. I can do it. Briefly, I have one club that has a person that basically runs the show on one project and put out a list that said, okay, sign up to do, all these tasks. And then she put her name down for about 95% of the tasks. It doesn't give anybody else an opportunity to really get involved, number one. And then number two, if that person disappears for whatever reason, gets sick or whatever, I'm afraid nobody else is going to know enough to do to keep the event going. So, how do we get that person to let go?
I think that is the conversation to have. When someone, if you have that conversation and you're talking about, we need to make sure that this project is around for years to come. We appreciate everything that you're doing, and maybe frame it in, continue to do what you're doing. But task A, we need to have someone who is sort of a co-chair with you on that. Task B, we also need someone who knows all the ropes about that. And, getting people on board. Hopefully, there's not some resentment there, and that person will welcome the help and maybe the creativity that someone else brings. But I really believe that truly is the conversation to have, is that, we always talk about if you're hit by a bus, but, if you're hit by a bus, can we continue, going down the track of this project if no one else knows what's going on?
I have to say, as a control freak, sometimes that's really hard. Because you do it a certain way, you know how it's done, and you've done it this many years. It's like, I just know how to do it. Just let me do it. So I can see where that's difficult from both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I will tell you one of the biggest changes we made, and I don't know why I didn't think about this. Again, we go back to the Easter egg hunt and the people we serve, but our young people who came into the club said, hey, we're going to get the Key Club students to do face painting. And again, I was like, don't know if I really want high schoolers face paint. I was just getting a little worried, you know, being that conservative adult. Turns out their idea was, let's get the Spanish speaking high school key club members who can talk to these students and know exactly what they want painted on their face. It was a game changer. None of our Kiwanians know Spanish. We didn't know what they wanted painted on their face. That was one of the best face painting years is you know, when we made that change. And again, I had to give up a little control and be okay with whatever was going to happen.
Yeah, Chris, I just want to bring up just a comment that, you know, burnout clearly affects our clubs but it also affects our districts. It is so difficult to find people to step forward to want to be a lieutenant governor. It's the best job in the district, believe me. But when people are presidents for 2-3 year terms, they start getting burnt out. And it also is a problem to get people to step into that governor's position, which is it's a lot of work, but it's amazing. But burnout takes a toll on every single level in the district, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I was a 2-term lieutenant governor. That sort of was a thing for a while in our division. And I was finishing up my term as president, and I was asked to be a lieutenant governor. And I said, I will be happy to be a lieutenant governor if I can enjoy my past president year. I wanted to re-engage with my club as a member, and my division made it work. They found someone who would take that interim year, and then we actually had a succession plan. And because I said that, it sort of started the ball rolling for the next 5 or 6 years of who was going to be lieutenant governor. And it sort of was that thing of, we would love you to be a lieutenant governor. Would you like to take a year off after being club president or whatever role, and then maybe step up into lieutenant governor? It was a great thing. But you're right, this burnout really does affect districts as well.
Agreed. And Chris, I'm not sure if you are seeing the chat still, but we have a brilliant idea from Mike and Kathy Lee in Alamosa. And this goes back to Denny's point. And they're saying have a shared Google Drive with the instructions on how to run that project, which would be great. You know, have this woman that's in control of everything and just, you know, ask her to itemize each of those, you know, steps that she's got, so that at least, you know, you've kind of captured some of the information on each of those tasks, so that moving forward, you might, you know, at least have the ability to fill that role.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes just little changes can make a huge difference in a project. You know, just one little short story. We used to make neck pillows all the time for Riley Children's Hospital here in Indianapolis, and we would make hundreds of them, and people were getting so burnt out with doing them. So I just called Riley one time and I said, do you need any neck pillows? And she's like, oh heavens no. She's like, we have so many neck pillows. And as we were hanging up, she was like, but wait, could you make some masculine neck pillows? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, we have so many pink and purple neck pillows. So I bought all this. At that time, you know, we had tons of NFL fleece and masculine colors. And not only was Riley excited about all these neck pillows, but my whole club was so excited about, you know, doing NFL neck pillows and you know, other, you know, things that we hadn't done. So just little changes can really excite people about things that they're doing for your club.
All right. Any other comments, questions for Chris before we wrap this up? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. I'm not seeing any hands raised. Nobody's unmuting themselves. Chris, thank you for being here with us tonight. I think that this is really a timely topic, and you've given us a lot to think about, and not only just kind of presenting the issues, but also giving us some solutions and some things to think about. So thank you for that. For the rest of you, we are halfway done with our spring training. Just finished our 3rd session, and next up on April 11th, which is a Monday night, we will be having a virtual escape room. This is the only session of spring training that we're charging for. It's a $30 charge for you to participate in an hour-long escape room. It's going to be hosted by our Rocky Mountain District Kiwanis Foundation. We'll be having a cocktail half hour before we enter into the escape room. I'm looking forward to this because I love escape rooms, but I've never done a virtual one. So this will be a new experience. And the proceeds from this will, 2/3 of the proceeds will be going towards our district foundation, and 1/3 will be going to the Kiwanis Children's Fund. So I hope if you haven't signed up, that you are able to go ahead, and I'm hoping that Joe is putting it in the chat right now, but if you email kiwanisrmd@gmail.com, Josephine can add you to that session so that you receive the link and you can come and enjoy that. Following that, we have 2 other sessions. We are going to have Regina Woods-Mitchell. She's going to come join us on the 21st. And that session is titled Putting the Social in Social Media. She's going to help us get word out on our social media sites so that we can engage new members to come and be additional hands for service. And then we are going to finish spring training by knocking it out of the park with a service leadership program panel. And so we will have Ann Stelling, and hopefully Kathy Lee will be joining as the successor for our Key Club. James Martin representing Circle K, and then Chris Skirto representing Key Leader, which is just a phenomenal program, and what a great lineup. So I hope that you will be able to join us on Saturday, the 23rd in the morning for that session, and we'll be wrapping up spring training then. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for all you're doing in your clubs. And it was great to see all of you. And again, thank you, Chris, for joining the Rocky Mountain District tonight.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Good night, everyone.